Hi, my name is Alex, am 39 years old, and for most of my adult life I thought I had everything figured out. Not in some grand, triumphant way. My life was never the kind that would impress strangers at parties. I work as a consultant, which means I spend way too much time fixing things that shouldn't have been broken in the first place, and I earn enough to pay the mortgage, keep the fridge stocked, and occasionally take my wife on a vacation that looks better on Instagram than it feels in real life. I met Sarah when I was 27. Back then I was just a guy renting a small apartment, still recovering from a breakup that had left me suspicious of women and honestly a little bitter. She was the opposite of everything I thought I deserved. Bright, warm, endlessly patient, with this way of laughing that could fill a room. We met at a friend's birthday dinner, and I remember thinking she was way out of my league. She was dating someone else at the time, but a year later we bumped into each other again, both single, both in different places in life, and somehow she said yes when I asked her out. The relationship moved fast. By the time I turned 30, we were married. We bought a modest 3-bedroom house in the suburbs, talked endlessly about future kids, and filled our weekends with barbecues, Netflix binges, and road trips. People would say things like, "You two are such a solid couple," and I believed it. I thought we were that couple, the one that made it, the one that would grow old together while everyone else split up. Maybe that's why the discovery hit me like a train. Not because I never imagined she could cheat, but because I had convinced myself that if infidelity happened in marriages, it was always in marriages that already had cracks. Ours felt at least to me whole. Or maybe I was just blind. It started with little things. The phone that she suddenly kept face down on the table. The late nights working on a project with colleagues I'd never heard of. She began dressing nicer for random errands, putting on perfume to just run to the store. I told myself I was paranoid. I didn't want to be the jealous husband snooping through his wife's life. I loved her, and I wanted to believe her. But then there was the night she came home at 2 a.m., claiming she'd lost track of time while catching up with an old friend. I remember sitting on the couch, staring at the clock, feeling this cold knot in my stomach. When she walked in, she was startled to see me awake. Her excuse tumbled out too quickly, and even as I nodded and pretended to accept it, I knew something had shifted. That was the night I decided to find out the truth. I didn't want to become that guy who checks his wife's phone, but once the suspicion is in your bloodstream, it eats at you. It's like a splinter under your skin that you can't ignore. The first step I took was small, asking harmless questions about her day, about the friends she was meeting, about projects at work. The answers came too fast, too rehearsed, as if she had already run through them in her head. One Friday evening she said she was staying late at the office. I decided to drive by, telling myself it was just to quiet the paranoia. Her car wasn't there. The building looked empty. I sat in my car for 30 minutes, hoping I was wrong, praying she'd walk out the front door and prove me crazy. She didn't. That's when the spiral began. I installed a cheap GPS tracker in her car. I told myself it was temporary, just until I could ease my mind. But the first night I used it, the little blinking dot stopped at a hotel 15 minutes from our house. She stayed there for 3 hours. I sat at my desk staring at the map, my hands shaking. I didn't want to believe it, but I already knew. The next few weeks were a blur of confirmation. I became two different people. By day, I smiled, made dinner with her, kissed her goodbye in the mornings. By night, I was an investigator, scrolling through phone records, watching the tracker, piecing together the puzzle. I found the number she texted most, saved under a fake name in her contacts. I called it once, my heart hammering, and when a man answered, I hung up immediately. I can't describe the mix of emotions: rage, sadness, humiliation, even a twisted kind of relief. Relief that I wasn't crazy, that my instincts weren't lying. But also this crushing grief, like the person I thought I'd known for 12 years had been replaced by a stranger. The confrontation came almost accidentally. One night she came home late again, smelling of cologne that wasn't mine. I asked her directly, "Are you seeing someone else?" At first, she laughed like I was being ridiculous. But when I didn't smile back, her face changed. She froze, and in that silence, before she even said a word, I had my answer. I don't know what I expected: tears, apologies, maybe some dramatic confession. What I got was a calm, almost cold admission. Yes, she had been seeing someone. Yes, it had been going on for months. She said she hadn't planned on telling me, that she still loved me in her own way, but that this other man made her feel alive again. Alive again. That phrase has been burned into my brain ever since. I didn't yell. I didn't smash things, though every nerve in my body wanted to. I just sat there, feeling like the air had been sucked out of the room, while she explained that it wasn't about me and that she never meant to hurt me. But the thing about betrayal is that it doesn't matter what they meant. It matters what they did. I remember just staring at her as she talked, like her voice was coming from underwater. Every word she said felt rehearsed, like she had been waiting for the day I finally caught her. I asked her if she loved him. She didn't answer right away. That pause said more than anything. When she finally muttered, "I don't know," it was like a knife twisting inside me. I barely slept that night. She went upstairs, climbed into bed like nothing had happened, while I sat on the couch staring at the dark TV screen. I kept thinking about the version of her I used to believe in, the woman who kissed me goodbye at airports, who cried when my father died, who once told me I was her safe place. Was that version ever real, or was I just too blind to see the cracks? The next morning, I went through the motions, made coffee, packed my work bag. She kissed me on the cheek, soft and casual, as if we had detonated our marriage the night before. That kiss made me sick. It felt contaminated, like it didn't belong to me anymore. Over the next week, I became a ghost in my own house. She acted normal, even cheerful, but I couldn't shake the images in my head, her in some hotel room, laughing the way she used to laugh with me, giving another man the kind of intimacy I thought was mine alone. I couldn't eat. I lost almost 10 pounds without realizing it. I'd sit in meetings at work staring at spreadsheets, but all I could think about was how she chose him over me. I started replaying our whole marriage in my head, searching for missed signs. Was she already drifting away years ago? Was I too focused on work, too complacent, too boring? I even questioned if I had somehow pushed her into his arms. But every time I spiraled like that, another voice inside me screamed. She made a choice. She could have talked to me. She could have left. Instead, she lied. I tried talking to her again, hoping maybe I'd hear some remorse, some begging for forgiveness. But when I asked why, she just shrugged and said she didn't feel like herself anymore, that she felt trapped in the routine of our life. She said he made her feel young, exciting, spontaneous. It wasn't about sex. She insisted it was about how he made her feel seen. I wanted to shout, "What about me? Didn't I see you every day for 12 years? Didn't I build a life around you?" But the words got stuck in my throat. All I could do was nod, numb. At night, I'd lie awake next to her, listening to her breathe, wondering if she was dreaming about him. I started to hate myself for staying, for letting her sleep peacefully beside me while my insides were on fire. I thought about leaving, about packing a bag and walking out. But every time I tried, this wave of fear crashed over me: fear of the empty house, fear of divorce papers, fear of admitting to the world that my marriage wasn't what it pretended it was. And so, for weeks, I lived in that purgatory. Not married, not divorced, just broken. The nights were the worst. I'd lie on my side of the bed, staring at the ceiling fan turning slowly above us, listening to her steady breathing. Sometimes she'd roll over and drape an arm across my chest like she used to, and instead of comfort, all I felt was disgust. I'd lie there stiff as a board, waiting for her arm to slip off, wondering if she held him the same way after their nights together. Sleep came in fragments. I'd close my eyes for 20 minutes, then snap awake with my heart pounding, replaying every excuse she'd ever given me over the past year. The late nights, the sudden girls' trips, the times she was distant during sex. The puzzle pieces that never fit suddenly formed a picture so clear it made me sick. I stopped eating dinner with her. I claimed I was working late or not hungry. She didn't push much. Maybe she was relieved that I wasn't starting another confrontation. Maybe she hoped I'd just let it go and return to being the husband who never asked questions. But my silence wasn't forgiveness. It was corrosion. One night, around 3 a.m., I got up, went downstairs, and sat at the kitchen table with a notebook. I wrote 2 lists. On one side, reasons to stay. On the other, reasons to leave. The stay side was embarrassingly short. Habit, shared mortgage, mutual friends, fear of starting over at 39. The leave side filled half the page before I stopped writing. Lies, betrayal, lost trust. Her face when she admitted it without flinching. The image of that hotel on the GPS map. And yet, when the morning came and she padded into the kitchen in her pajamas, smiling faintly as if everything was fine, I folded the page and shoved it into a drawer. I couldn't bring myself to act. That limbo stretched on until the day I finally broke. It was a Sunday afternoon. She said she was going to the gym, but she came back 2 hours later in jeans and a sweater, her hair freshly washed, not a drop of sweat on her. She was humming to herself as she walked through the door, and for some reason, that tiny detail, the humming, set me off. It was too cheerful, too casual. I asked her point blank if she had seen him. She froze again, like she had during the first confrontation. This time she didn't deny it. She just said, "I needed to." That phrase detonated something in me. Needed to. Like I wasn't enough, like our vows, our history, our home, none of it mattered. I told her to pack a bag. My voice was steady, even though my hands were shaking so hard I had to clench them into fists at my sides. She looked shocked, maybe even hurt, but I didn't care anymore. I told her I couldn't live like this, that she had made her choice, and now I was making mine. She started crying then, begging me to think about it, saying she didn't want to lose me, that it was just a mistake, that she'd end it with him. But I saw the hesitation in her eyes. The truth was, she didn't really want to end it. She just didn't want to lose the safety net of me. And for the first time in weeks, I felt clarity. The day she finally left, the house felt like it had been gutted. She packed a suitcase in silence, occasionally glancing at me as if waiting for me to stop her. I didn't. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee I wasn't drinking, listening to the sound of drawers opening and closing, hangers clattering. When she rolled the suitcase down the hall, the wheels bumping against the floorboards, it felt like a funeral procession. She paused at the door, tears streaking her face, and whispered, "I'm sorry." I didn't answer. I didn't trust myself to. When the door shut behind her, the silence was suffocating. I walked through the house like a stranger, noticing the empty spots where her things had been. The closet looked like a crime scene with half the clothes missing. Her side of the bathroom counter was barren. Even the bed felt different without the weight of her beside me. The first few nights were brutal. I'd reach over in my sleep and find nothing but cold sheets. I'd wake up expecting to hear her footsteps on the stairs, her voice calling my name. Instead, there was just the hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the house settling. Friends started to notice. I told them the truth in pieces, never giving the full story at once because saying it out loud made it too real. Some of them were shocked. Some admitted they had suspected something for a while. That stung the most, realizing other people had seen the cracks before I did. My parents wanted me to fight for the marriage, to work it out. They come from a generation where you stayed no matter what, but I couldn't. Not after what she had done. Not after the lies stacked so high I couldn't see past them. Slowly, painfully, the grief began to shift. It didn't go away, but it changed shape. At first it was like carrying a boulder everywhere I went. Then it became more like a heavy backpack, still there, but sometimes I could forget the weight for an hour or two. I started filling the silence with new routines. Long runs at night, where I'd pound the pavement until my lungs burned. Journaling, even if all I wrote were the same angry sentences over and over. Therapy sessions where I finally let out the rage I'd been bottling up. And one night, sitting alone on the porch with a beer, I realized something that stopped me cold. I didn't miss her. Not really. I missed the version of her I thought existed. The woman who laughed at my dumb jokes, who held me when I was broken, who promised me forever. But that version was gone, maybe had been gone for years. What I was mourning wasn't her, it was the illusion. That realization didn't fix everything, but it gave me a kind of peace. For the first time, I thought maybe I could build a life without her. A life where I didn't have to wonder whose cologne she smelled like, or whose name lit up her phone at night. I'm not going to pretend I'm over it. Some nights the loneliness still hits like a freight train. Some mornings I wake up with that same hollow ache in my chest. But day by day, the fog lifts a little. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Betrayal doesn't define you. It feels like it will, like it'll stamp a permanent scar on your soul. But slowly, painfully, you learn to carry it differently. You learn that the world doesn't end just because your marriage does. And maybe one day, I'll be able to trust again. Not because I forgot what happened, but because I survived it.